Happy Monday. It's the beginning of a new week. Sports Reports' order is here. Tonight, we got a whole lot of playoffs to get to. Prediction time. Yes, you are now listening to the sound of Sports Reports' orders. And those sounds are coming from the even keel. Born in Texas, raised in VA, representing New Jerusalem, but not the Giants. Do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
He is Mr. Logical. And I am your unorthodox statistician coming to you from the Alamo by way of Baltimore. But I'm not a Raven. 2-5. So do me a favor out there, America. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things, do all the good things. And just in case you was wondering, I know y'all got friends and family out there. We are wherever you get your podcasts. Let's go. We're going to start this off right with Get It Off My Chest. Mr. Logical. Let's hear it.
Yes. Wonderful introduction as always. Pardon me. This Get Off My Chest gonna be a little bit more somber, and then also very, very angry. This weekend started a lot of high school football around the country. We're in a sports group. Shout out to the Hot Box. And Mr. Lewis, South Carolina's own, decided to go to a football game Thursday. Big time game. South Carolina starting the season off. You know, we talk about the SEC and how much they love football. It starts in high school, youth football. They love their football out there. And he sent the message in the group saying they had to stop the game because of a shootout. I mean, there's children at these games. There's families there. People there to watch a football game, and they can't finish because your desire to be violent in an area where there's children trying to enjoy themselves, the lack of respect you have for human life is appalling. So even in that conversation, it happens so often, it felt like we talked about it for a second in the group, and we went on, and it just was like, what the hell? How the hell you can't enjoy yourself on a Thursday night? So then I was talking to my son's mother. She has a really good friend, lives out in Utah. You know, he's been through it in his life as well. And his 15-year-old son was breaking up a fight because his friend was getting jumped at a football game in an affluent part of Utah and get stabbed to death. Had to call his mother and said, "Mom, I'm on my way to the hospital. I got stabbed." And he died she was listening to her 15-year-old son pass away from a stab wound because people don't respect life. And this is not a red state, blue state. This is not any of that nonsense. Black. It's literally young people going to high school sporting events, not coming home alive. Life on the line to go to a high school football game. And everybody is, you know, we're going to post all of our political alliances. We're going to share the videos of Kamala said this, or J.D. Vance said that, or Trump did this, or Biden did that back in the day, and Obama never did this. I don't give a damn about none of that. If we can't get this violence in our country under control, what the fuck are we here for? This man lost his 15-year-old son. My youngest son just turned 15 a few months back, going to his sophomore year. He goes to sporting events with his friends all the time. When they go to their games, they go to other basketball games, they go to house parties with other athletes, fights break out. If he gets in a fight, you get into a fight, testosterone. But I don't want to have a phone call saying that my 15-year-old son is headed to the hospital over something as petty as a fight. It couldn't have been anything that important. I don't know what's going on in your life at 15, but ain't none of that shit worth stabbing somebody to death over. And yeah, we pick up and we keep going day by day, but this violence, where children are. You're letting off bullets. Do you know how like many feet per second bullets travel? Do you know they can ricochet off of something? Do you know what's behind your target? Do you know even how to handle the damn gun? Do you not know how to fight? Do you know how to regulate your emotions? Do you not understand what you are doing to people's families? What you doing to your friends? Because now let's keep like I'm getting my criminal justice hat. Everybody involved in that fight that's friends with the individual that stabbed this young man to death, all of you are liable for felony murder charges. It may be second degree murder, but they gonna bring all you in. And you can say I'm not snitching, I'm not that. Cool. You could do 35 to life with him. Because when you're committing a crime and a felony happens, you get part of that. So if you're in a car and your friend goes in there and they rob the store and they stab somebody, you get part of that. And not like a middle part. You get an equal part of that. So all y'all equally getting sent up. So think about that when you pick your friends. Think about that when you pick these cars you get in. Parents, think about that when you send your kids out. Does your kid need help? Does your kid handle his emotions well, her emotions well? You see it at the crib. We had a shooting in Michigan a few years ago that took the lives of a young football player, a school shooting. That young man and his parents got locked up because they knew he should not have had access to a gun, and they bought him the gun. They knew he was taking it places. He took it to school and used it. So they got manslaughter charges along with his murder charges. So if you can't get your kids under control, and if you need something to get, that's when you scream for your politicians and say, hey, we need better medical care in our communities. We need better therapy in our communities. We need better security in our community. We need better everything in our community. So my son who needs help, my daughter who needs help, doesn't go out here and commit one of these crimes. And that way someone else doesn't have to get a phone call from their child dying in an ambulance. We got to do better. Fuck all this voting shit. Get on your fucking game. Take care of your family. Look at the eyes of the people who live in your house and make sure they're squared away. Stop posting this shit about people who don't give a damn about you. Kamala Harris does not care about you individually. My oldest son's last name is Harris. That's the Harris I care about. I want to know what's going on with him. How is he managing his day? That's who should matter. Not all this arbitrary stuff on the outside. Because if you don't take care of them, they're going to go out and that energy is going somewhere. Good, bad, or indifferent. And I'm pretty sure you don't want to be the parent answering the phone saying, Mom, I'm locked up. I stabbed this kid in the fight. Dad, I'm locked up. I got in a shootout at a football game. Get it together, people. Get it together. That's all.
Huh. I don't even know what to say after that, but it's a shame. You know, I know it's cliche. Everybody says it, but, you know, parents ain't supposed to bury the kids. You know what I mean? And a lot of this stuff is just stupid. Like, I even see some of these, like, rappers out here, they be digging up graves, you know, and all this kind of stuff like that. And then they get got. And it's like violence begets violence, you know, but whew, all right. So I'll try to move on. So this weekend, there was a report that came out. The one and only Coach Prime, as only Coach Prime can, had decided that he's not going to answer questions from Sean Keeler of the Denver Post. Now, everybody that watches Sports Reports is ordered. I know your thoughts are, how's 2-5 going to shit on Dion this time? That's not what I'm here for. So it's one thing to criticize somebody. Like I criticize people all the time, like, hey, this show wasn't good, or hey, what is he talking about? People might criticize us, but the difference is it's not supposed to be personal. Like if you say, hey, Coach Prime started 3-0 last year, they finished 1-8. It's not personal. That's a fact. Hey, Colorado went out last year and got fifth and sixth stringers from the transfer portal, and everybody thought that they were going to be a great team. That's a fact. But when you're coming up here talking about, let me see, I got this written down here, Planet Prime, disposition or deposition Dion, the Bruce Lee of BS, even though I do think that's hilarious, the false prophet. You can't get any more personal than that. And the problem is, you weren't ready for this part. The problem is that people like Skip Bayless have come along and, come up with all these nicknames, come up with all these words because they're behind a camera and don't have to deal with the individual that they're addressing. Where Sean Killer does get to be in the same room as Dion. Dion can address him if necessary. But the problem is that you put Dion in a position, which I know wasn't your intention. You put Dion in a position to be the one getting the sympathy because you thought you were criticizing him and everybody was just going to jump on board with you. You just took it too far for no reason at all. If it were me, I would have loved for Dion to have his Mike Gundy, I'm a man, I'm 57, have that moment. And I've seen people out here calling Prime weak, soft. Deion Sanders might be a lot of things, but not those two words. So at the end of the day, and even for us sitting here behind a microphone, sometimes you got to be more mindful of your words. Words have repercussions. And Mr. Logical just got done talking about violence. Some of those repercussions are violent. So for all of you out there that are calling Dion soft or weak, you let me know when it has been tolerable to accept disrespect.
You should do it because you're famous and you make a lot of money. Or that's that man's right to free speech.
And it is, but Dion got a right to his reaction too.
Yeah, I think, and over the last few years, like I say, I know we've been like politically charged as a nation.
When he's talking about the government,
I don't think people understand. Free speech is your right to say whatever you desire, but even with that, there's a limit. You can't scream bomb in an airport. You can't scream fire in a movie theater.
You can't say certain things on the phone when you're talking about the president.
You can't say certain things when you're being watched. You can't communicate threats. You can say what you like. We understand freedom of the press is for you to be able to say what you want, but it has limitations. It also has basic consequences. If you work for a newspaper and you're trying to write a story on me and I don't like how you disrespect me, then I'm not obligated to speak to you. You're allowed in the room because you're a press, you have credentials. You can stay in there with everybody else. But if there's 20 people in there and my rule is like I'm only taking questions from 3 people, the other 17 people can say you're infringing on my right to be a press. I'm like, no, like you're allowed to be in here. I'm allowed to take as many questions as I so desire. My so desire is 3 from 3 people. If I don't call you, I don't call on you. Yeah.
And that's real. Yeah. That's what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think people kind of forget that part. It's like there's repercussions to that.
Right.
And to your point, when you're talking about he thought he was going to be able to pile on Dion, and now Dion's getting sympathy. It reminded me of this movie, The Trial of Chicago 7. And loosely based on a true story. I'm pretty sure some things were embellished and things like that, but it's based on a true story. And in the court, Bobby Seale was the Black Panther leader in Chicago, connected to these other political activists. And in one scene, the judge had him like bound, like gagged, and like duct tape around it. And then the prosecutor was like watching the judge do this. He was like, "What the hell is going on?" And then they went up and they adjourned and they dropped the charges against him. And one of the lines were, "You did that because now you given up your leverage because everyone else watching the trial will look at him as the enemy. But now that you've gagged him and duct taped him and handcuffed him to a chair in a courtroom, now he's getting sympathy. So now you can't use the same animosity to try to fuel people." So it's like sometimes you just got to understand, like, listen, it's not all about how you feel in the moment. Get a one-on-one interview or write your authentic article. But if you write something and somebody doesn't want to talk to you after that, then you got to live with that. And if
Go
you
cover
write,
Colorado State.
I mean, go cover the Denver Nuggets. They
Go
might start
cover
playing
Air Force.
basketball in about 6 weeks. I mean, you got plenty of options. It just the Buffaloes, the
You know what
most
I'm saying?
popular draw in your state for college football, or they're probably more popular of a draw than
Go out here and
Broncos
cover.
right now.
Go out here and cover the troops. Support the
Go
troops.
out there and write Zach Wilson stories. It's right up the block.
Yeah.
Just head down I-25. You'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. People can call Deion Soft all you want, but you're not gonna sit there and let somebody imagine your manager writing a critique about you and then reading it out loud in the middle of the office. You just gonna sit there and take it because that's their job to write a critique and read it out loud? No, you're not gonna just sit there and take it. No. So Deion ain't gotta take it. Pause.
Yeah. So so since we're on the topic of college football, let me tell you, my Seminoles went to Ireland, showed their ass, and their asses got smacked. Georgia Tech, it was a 3-point game when you look at the scoreboard. Realistically, Florida State lost that game by at least 17. Now, this was one of those games, right, where you got the underdog. Now, granted, they were like an 11-point underdog. They weren't like a 20-point underdog, but regardless.
That's substantial.
Yeah. Regardless, you sit there, you watch good teams all the time, play the better team tough, play them tough, and then they throw a timely interception. There's a weird fumble that happens. So in the third quarter, Georgia Tech missed the field goal in a 14-14 game. And I said, there it is. That's the moment.
That's
now,
the
Florida
underdog's
State is
mistake.
Seize control.
Win this game 28-14.
It didn't happen. So when I did my preview, I told people, hey, Georgia Tech and Florida State, 9 out of 10 always goes down to the wire. So I picked Florida State 27-24. I thought that it was going to be a close game throughout. Florida State would just hold the ball a little longer and lean on Georgia Tech's defensive line. But here's a stat for you, Mr. Logical.
Let's hear
it. When Georgia Tech ran the football, not only did they outgain Florida State 193-98, but they had 3.3 yards before contact. Florida State had a half yard before contact. And offensive line was supposed to be Florida State's strength. It was supposed to be one of the best in the country, if not at least the best in the ACC. Florida State's defensive line was supposed to be one of the best in the ACC, if not in the country. Mm-hmm. So now we sit here as we get into our playoff preview here. Florida State comes back next Monday night on Labor Day at home against Bill O'Brien and the crew, coming in from Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. They can't lose that game because that gives them 2 conference losses. Even if they win out after that, you're in trouble. So Florida State could probably get away with a loss to Notre Dame since it's not another ACC team. If they win out, become ACC champion and get an automatic slot. So DJ Uyangale is going to get a lot of the blame for what happened the other day. It was obvious that Mike Norvell didn't trust him. I didn't trust him. He completed 57% of his passes at Oregon State last year. Sounding real Anthony Richardson-like.
What, he about 57% on this game?
No, he was actually pretty damn accurate this game. And actually, in
Oh,
fact,
just everything was behind the line of scrimmage. Like the
right.
first half, he had like
Yeah.
negative.
He went,
Yeah, like
he went Desmond Ritter on us. 12 for 14 for 96 yards. Sounds great. But his air yards per pass was negative 0.1. You know what I mean? That's why you lost the game. You didn't take chances. You didn't take shots. You thought that you could just out-talent Georgia Tech. And Haynes King said no. And then and another thing that I brought up in my preview, Georgia Tech brought in Tyler, I can never say his name, Santucci, who was the defensive coordinator last year for Duke when they smacked Clemson in the first game of the season. So even though Georgia Tech had one of the worst defenses in the country, they rectified that. So I'm going to be honest, I had Florida State in my playoff. So for the purposes of authenticity, I'm going to leave Florida State in my playoff when we do this. I'm not going to use that result to try to get a mulligan and say, oh, I never had Florida State. You know what I'm saying? So, Mr. Logical. Let's get to it.
Yeah.
It's prediction time, playoff time. So,
I'm predicting Florida State's going to play a nice little easy cupcake game next season, week 1.
All right. So here's the first question. Who do you have as your G5 representative?
Take Boise State. I just like the winning coach they've always had there. I know a lot of people are going to pick another team that's closer to where I currently live, but I like Boise State. I like the talent they get in. I like the fact that they are, just one of those talented teams that just always seems to retool, get better. They don't have to win out. I mean, they're probably going to have to win out, but I like Boise State as my G5 team.
Okay. So, of course, Boise State, when you look at Boise State, a lot of people believe that the Mountain West is the best G5 conference. I'm not one of them, but it's still a good conference, but they do go to Autzen on September 7th to play the Ducks. They get Washington State. They go to UNLV, which is going to be a tough game. And they go to Wyoming, which will be a tough game. But I don't see that a game that Boise should be afraid of, outside of the Oregon game. So, I mean, that makes sense. But for me, I know they hired a new coach. Last year, they won the Mountain West, even though they fired their offensive coordinator in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
So, that just goes to say, for me to say, Boise is not without flaws. So I picked Memphis. Now, when I look at Memphis, though, they got some problems. You know what I'm saying? They go to Florida State. They go to Tulane. They come down here to play UTSA. So, when you look at it that way, it's a little tougher than it seems. In the smart money, if I was a betting man for real, I would probably say that Liberty would be the G5 representative because for the second year in a row, they don't play a power team. But the problem for Liberty is margins of error.
Very slim.
If they lose one game, they out of here. And even if they go undefeated, but then I look at, say, Memphis, and they got through with only a loss to Florida State, Boise with only a loss to Oregon. That 0 shouldn't protect them. So I would still want to put one of those teams in over Liberty, right? The whole talk about this whole playoff the whole time, right? Most deserving or best team.
Yeah.
I can't call you the best because you didn't even play the best.
Yeah, but that most deserving best team is only applied when they're trying to rationalize someone getting in that shouldn't be in.
Bama.
And it depends on how they use it. So I remember when Kirby Smart and Georgia got their second loss, and they lost like 2 times Alabama, and he was kind of clamoring to get into the playoffs. He said, "I bet you that team over there doesn't want to see us again." I'm like, "Wait, they saw you twice."
Well, remember Nick Saban, right? We lost both of our games on the last play of the game. against Tennessee and LSU. I bet you we'd be favored over all those teams. Yeah, you might, but you lost. Get out of here.
Like we gotta have a line of demarcation somewhere. Like it has to be a standard. It's like, yo, you can't have 2 losses and other teams have 0.
It's like that big pun moment, right? Not you again. Go that way. And so now let me take it back now. So you got Boise as your G5 representative. Who is your number 1 seed?
Them dogs. I just don't see how you beat Georgia. 6'7", 340 across the offensive line. Bringing back a quarterback projected to be a top pick in NFL. Kirby Smart. I mean, they literally just all they do is win. They're just a winning organization. It's just like you can't count them out. Especially now, I think they are the upper crust of the SEC. So. And that's the best football conference as far as the top. Their top tier teams across the entire nation. If you extrapolate their talent and their wins and their victories, the top tier teams from the SEC, there's top 3, 4 to 5 teams are among the best of the country in any other conference. So they are the best of the best. So I got Georgia as my number 1 seed.
Would you believe me if I told you I got Georgia as my number 1 seed too?
Nah, I don't believe you because it's somebody else.
Okay, good job. Because I don't. I have Ohio State as my number 1 seed. I have them and Georgia both losing a game. I have Georgia losing at Oxford against Ole Miss. I have Ohio State losing at Autzen against Oregon. So obviously both of them are going to win out, after those losses. But Georgia's loss will just happen later. Now, that's up to the committee, right? So the committee might say, you might be correct, because the committee might just say, I'm putting the SEC champion at number 1.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, okay.
We've seen it happen 11 times now.
Yes,
there's plenty of evidence to support like how this is going to go.
So I got Ohio State as my 1, Georgia as my 2. Do you have Ohio State as your 2?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Mr. Logical, for those of you keeping count at home, got Georgia as the 1 seed, Ohio State is the 2 seed, and I have the reverse of that. All right. So who is your 3 seed?
The boys from Salt Lake City.
Come on, man.
Listen, hey, every once in a while you gotta be a homer. I think having a 25-year-old quarterback, I think Whittingham is he just doesn't lose. He just you got the advantage of just being the Big 12. Not real physical teams. Utah, so many Pacific Islanders, physicality. They recruit Texas and California well. I just think the talent matched with the coaching staff and the consistency of the staff. I think that's your Big 12 champ, and they're your number 3 seed.
So originally I had Utah as my number 4. But then Florida State lost this weekend. So to keep Florida State in the playoffs so I can keep my word and be honorable, I moved Utah to number 3 as well. I put Florida State at number 4 because the rule for this playoff is the top 4 conference champions, the top 4 ranked conference champions get the buys. And like I said, in that scenario, your G5 probably has to be undefeated, to get that 4th spot. And you have to have a conference champion that has 2 or 3 losses. So like we talked about,
if we have Utah or even Florida State, Utah, if they have 2 losses, your Liberty or Boise State or even Memphis still would have to be like 11 or 10.
They would have to be
higher.
Dominant. They would have
to be in the top 10 when the conference championships occurred.
So I think the G5 is always going to be 12. That's just me. I think they're just always going to get the 12. You know what I mean? But we'll get back to that in a little bit. Yeah. All right. So I got Florida State is my 4. Who's your number 4?
Florida State. I had to move them down too, because it's like, well, we know what the new format, 12 teams, automatic. I still think that they are going to. I think they'll beat Clemson. I think Clemson, like, I don't know if Cade Klubnik is the guy in Clemson, so I don't know if he's going to be able to pull him out of a couple of games.
We'll
and
find
get
out this
wins.
weekend, won't we?
That's what that's what I mean. So I just seen him last year. I just didn't really feel like he was that dynamic to the point where, like I said, we talk about Dabo Swinney not going into the transfer portal and not really, retooling for the following year, just kind of doing this old school way. I can see that kind of being a detriment to the team. So I figure Florida State still rises. And I have another ACC team in here, but
all right, we'll get there. We'll get there.
All
right, so now we're going to pause and let me run down the playoff for a quick second. So, as mentioned, the top 4 conference champions get a bye. The first round games, so that's 5 versus 12, 6-11, 8-9, 7-10, are all on campus or a designated stadium chosen by that representative. So, for example, I just made this up. If Liberty were to win the conference. Now, I don't know where Lynchburg is in the sense of Virginia, but Liberty could say, hey, we'll play at FedEx Field, or whatever, like just to have a bigger stadium, bigger home field advantage, whatever it might be, even though they're not going to be hosting the game. I'm just using that as an example. Now, the teams do not reseed. So we know that in the NFL, the 1 seed gets a bye. If 7 wins, 1's playing 7. So 1 is going to play whoever the lowest seed is left. In this here college football playoff, 1 automatically plays the winner of the 8-9. And then you delineate from there. 2 against the 7-10, 3 against the 6-11, the 4-5-12 or whatever. Now, the second round games are going to be at bowl sites. Yep. So we got the Fiesta Bowl, the Peach Bowl, the Rose Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl. So problem number 1 that I have is that if you are the number 1 seed in this structure, in this format, you don't even get to host a playoff game. And then just for shits and giggles, let's just say hypothetically, you got Georgia as your 8 seed playing against 9 seed whoever. Georgia wins. And Ohio State's the 1 seed. Then you got to play Georgia in the second round. Whereas if you're the 5th seed, let's say you're somebody like Notre Dame. If you're Notre Dame, you potentially line up against Liberty, and then you play the lowest rated of the top 4 byes.
And your top 4 conference winners could be hypothetically a 9-3. Not necessarily. We'll say like a 9-3 Clemson, hypothetically, or like a 9-3 NC State. Not normally a powerhouse, but they are the lowest ranked power 4 conference champions. So it's so at 5 is probably the spot to be.
Yeah, 5 is the spot.
Other than you just have to play that extra game. Because you never know, you might get a conference champion. So you might have the regular season end, you play these conference championships, and then you lose and you end up 5. But so now you got to play another game to get before you get to that 4. So it could be attrition because you could lose, you could shave off a game.
Let's have some real fun though. Let's say you're Ohio State and you're the 1 seed. The 8-9 matchup is Georgia-Michigan. So you're either going to play Georgia in the second round or you're going to play your rival that you just played a couple of weeks ago, and you're the 1 seed and you can't even get it at home. So, what are we doing here? I guess, the bowl game has to make money, so I guess that's why they're doing this. But then
luckily you're Ohio State, you're going to be able to sell out half whatever stadium. If it's at Pasadena, the Rose Bowl, for set. You said the national championship is
I was getting to that. Yeah, so the semifinals are at the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl. And then on January 20th, the national title game is at the Compressor, a.k.a. Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So if you play Georgia there, neutral site, right?
The greatest neutral site in sports.
So
hands down.
So that's your playoff rundown as far as the sites, the rules, and the structure of it. Now, the good news is, in 2026, well, good news if my scenario played out that I brought up. 2026, you go back to the table and you can change the playoff. You can change how many teams. They're talking about going to 14. You can say, hey, you know what, G5s, you're not even competitive. You're out of here. So, like, keep your eye on 2026. So let's get back to it. So, Mr. Logical. So we went through our top 4 seeds. So what is your 5-12 matchup?
Boise State, Oregon.
So a rematch, okay. Because the committee has made it known that they're not going to avoid rematches.
Yep. So we got Boise State, Oregon.
6-11.
Texas, Alabama. Rematch from last year.
Oh, yeah, because they don't play during the regular season. That'd be nice. But Bama ain't getting in.
Ole Miss, NC State, my 7-10.
Okay.
And then Missouri, Iowa, my 8-9 game.
Okay. All right. So what's your second round matchups?
So I got, go ahead and take Oregon out of the 5 seed. I think Texas is going to be too much for Bama, obviously. It's kind of chalk. Take Ole Miss, beating NC State. And then I'll take Missouri. So I got 1 through 4, 5 through 8. That's probably going to be wrong, but like I said, this is not what we would bet on. It's just, if you're looking at it, on a Monday night in August, this is what it looks like. So you got Missouri, Georgia. A lot of SEC schools in my situation here.
Don't say.
Ohio State, Ole Miss, Utah, Texas, Florida State, Oregon. Yeah, I'll take Oregon in that matchup. I'm gonna take Utah over Texas.
Okay. Go Utes.
Ohio State over.
Was it Ole
Ohio
Miss?
State over Ole Miss,
Mm-hmm.
And then Georgia beats their SEC comrade Missouri. So yeah, my semifinal would be Georgia versus Oregon, Ohio State versus Utah.
Okay.
And then obviously the national championship is Georgia versus Ohio State.
And Georgia, the winner is
and
you can't beat them dogs, huh?
Georgia wins. It can't play out this way because it's too.
But it's college football.
I have too many just standard names in here. I mean, throwing Ole Miss in there is probably new, but I think they were always on the cusp. Like when that final at the end of the season, I think they're like 9-11 in that final college football ranking. They just have a couple of Lane Kiffin games where they lose 45-42.
Mm-hmm.
He comes in cocky, he throws out some bullshit on Twitter, or he does something in an interview with Paul Feinbaum, and it's like, oh, he put bulletin board material out there. But I think this year he'll be able to overcome it because you'll SEC school, 2 losses, even if you don't play in an SEC championship, I think the committee will get you in.
All right. Well, so in my bracket, my 5-12 is Oregon over Memphis. My 6th seed, this is where it starts to get nasty, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and admit we're getting nasty on Sports Reports' order.
I'm going chalk because I'm just like,
I'm going chalk too, but it's just nasty with these names. These names are nasty. So like I said, 5-12 is Oregon over Memphis. I got 6th-seeded Miami. This is my non-chalk. Losing to number 11 Missouri. I got number 7 Texas knocking off Penn State. And the nastiest of the nastiest, I changed it back again. My 8-9 is Clemson over Iowa. Because I like Iowa's schedule. They're going to have the defense, and all they got to do is be a little bit better on offense.
So you got 3 ACC schools.
Yeah.
That I was teetering with that when we were talking, when we did our earlier predictions and everything else for the ACC. But that was me just kind of assuming Florida State would just kind of run away with it and then a couple of teams sneak in. But now I think it's going to be that someone's going to knock another team out.
Right. So I got in the second round, in the second round, I got Ohio State over Clemson, Georgia over Texas, Ole Miss over Utah, and Oregon over FSU. Don't kill me, y'all. Like, I'm gonna be living in Utah next year, so don't kill me, y'all. You know what I'm saying? But then in my semifinal, I got Ohio State and Oregon. Most people have them playing for the Big Ten title. I don't. I picked Penn State, but I got Ohio State over Oregon, so this will be the second matchup, not the third. I got Georgia over Ole Miss, even though I'm picking Ole Miss to beat Georgia during the regular season. So I got another rematch, Georgia with the win. And then in my title game, Ohio State over Georgia. You know what I'm saying? So there you go. So Mr. Logical has Georgia over Ohio State. I have Ohio State over Georgia. You know, craziness in my bracket because I got Miami in here. I got Missouri in here. I got Iowa in here. I got 3 ACC teams where they do that at. So you know, Mr. Logical, you know, got Boise as his G5 representative, and I have Memphis as my G. Well, Mike, you know, like I said, man, you know, I could have took the easy way out. You know, before the games this weekend, I had Florida State in the playoff. I didn't want to come on here after the fact and be like, "Nah, I don't got Florida State." Like, are you crazy? So I'm gonna just keep it real. I had Florida State, so I'm gonna keep Florida State.
As a real power conference, they still have a shot. I mean, there's currently 17th in the ACC, but it's early. You know, you can still make that break in the last 100 meters using Olympic terms. Yeah, this is going to, like when he said Bama will make it. It's just, to me, I've never trusted the committee to take wins and losses into total accountability. I think they, like I said, I believe right now you got 12 teams or 12 spots, 5 are automatic, right? 7 are up for grabs. I think the committee is going to take 11 teams and then figure out ways to rationalize the seeds to get certain teams in, a la what they did last year with Florida State. Florida State being undefeated conference champ should have been in the playoff. But we saw them use the fact that they didn't have a complete team with the lack of their starting quarterback. That should not factor in at all because mathematically it didn't matter because they still won their championship. But they still stood on the podium and had Georgia or Texas and Alabama in because, like I said, they were going to put Alabama in. They just couldn't put Alabama in without putting Texas in because Texas beat Alabama.
Right.
So
and that was
Florida
just
State the injury just made it easy because I think 12-1 Texas, 13-0 Florida State with a healthy George Travis. I think Alabama doesn't get in. Just because you'd have to take into account that head-to-head matchup between
right. But I just didn't see a world where a 14 playoff was going to leave the SEC champion out. Like the SEC, if it would have came down to it, the SEC champion would have been the first 2-loss team to get in the playoff. Like, you know, if that was a scenario.
Yeah, that would have been. I mean,
hey,
I don't know if they make that
2-loss
decision.
national champion. Do you know who that was?
LSU.
It was LSU over Ohio State. You know what I mean? So, like, they were going to find a way. And that's why, like that was my problem because Kirk Herbstreit and the gang, they had already started beating the drum against Florida State before Jordan Travis got hurt. They were already saying, like, are you going to leave Bama out? Are you going to leave Texas out? Like, you know, before Jordan Travis even got hurt. Then when he got hurt, it was like, oh, hey, we got justification now.
I think they could have justified. Yeah, no, they couldn't. They Florida State was the easiest one.
Yeah, it was the easiest one. You know what I mean?
It was the lowest hanging fruit.
But there we go.
But I think the same thing happened this year. I think you know, maybe a 10-2 Clemson and a 10-2 Alabama I think they usher Alabama in and Clemson.
Oh, that would be tough.
In that kind of scenario. I just think that
would be tough. See, I agree with you, but I also think it matters how it plays out. So, like,
if your loss is November, if your 2 losses on November 1st and 8th, then yeah. Or
what if Clemson say beat Georgia, lost at Florida State, and then lost in the ACC championship game, and then Alabama
doesn't
lost
play
to, say,
in
an 8-4 LSU in a 7-5 Tennessee. Then it would be tough. But I agree with you, though. I still think they would take Bama.
I think they take Clemson because
I don't know.
Unless somebody on the committee has Nick Saban's phone number and he has theirs, and he makes a call.
I'm sure they do, and that's my other question that we had asked before.
Where's the influence gonna come from?
If you were the 3 in your conference, like regular season's over, Georgia's 12-0. They're in the SEC title game against, say, we'll just call it Tennessee. We'll call it Tennessee just for the sake of argument.
Yeah.
Tennessee's 11-1. They lose the SEC title game to Georgia, so now they got 2 losses. Bama was the 3 with 2 losses. Does Tennessee get credit for being the SEC runner-up?
Yes.
Or does Bama jump them?
They'll get Tennessee in because basically they got their second loss in their 13th game.
Yeah.
So I
what if Bama beat Tennessee in the right? What if Bama was their 1 loss?
Well, they'll still have 11.
Well, actually, that doesn't work out because they played both of them played Georgia, so that wouldn't work out.
So they'll have 11 wins. So I think that'd be like the thing. Like, well, they got 11 wins. They play an SEC championship. They're still going to get in, and they'll just, like I said, they'll just fit Bama in.
So the key here is, where does Notre Dame fit into all this? If they are playoff eligible, like, but I don't think they're going to be. I got to believe Texas A&M this weekend.
They got that Alabama easy street as well because of the helmet.
Well, the craziness is,
if they are eligible, I just never think Notre Dame is. Every year, people have them in the playoffs. Every year, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter how many guys transferred out, and how many people graduated. Every year, people just seen Notre Dame. And it's like, I haven't seen a championship level Notre Dame team in a while.
Well,
and every single year, someone has them. Even when it was 4 teams, I get it. I know it happened once in the 14 playoff. It was like, they're not prime. They just have a great recruiting class because they recruited. It's fucking Notre Dame Catholic schools in every state with good high school football has a Notre Dame. That's a pipeline school to Notre Dame. We got one here in Jersey.
We got one in Baltimore. But we're going to find out this weekend, right? Because Clemson goes to the compressor to play Georgia.
Neutral field.
Miami goes to the swamp. Notre Dame comes down here to play A&M. LSU and Trojan Angeles play in Vegas. So we're going to find out a whole lot this weekend. Even though it's only 1 game, the margin of error will exist. So here we are. Now that we're done with college football, the question on everybody's mind is, can the Chiefs three-peat? So, Mr. Logical, if you would, real quick, recap your division winners in the NFL.
I got Miami, Kansas City, Houston, Baltimore.
Okay.
For the AFC. NFC, I have a revision. I got Detroit, San Francisco, Dallas, and I moved Atlanta up as a division winner just because of the moves they made defensively.
You know what I'm saying? I was on Atlanta from day one, but I'm just saying.
I wasn't, and I'll be honest, I wasn't because I felt like they couldn't rush the passer, they couldn't defend the pass. So I'm like, they locked up AJ Terrell. Justin Simmons on a 1-year deal. Jesse Bates signed his big deal last year. They got Judon for a steal. He seems motivated, wearing number 15 down in Atlanta. I know he's, over 30, pass rusher, third team. I'm not expecting 2 or 3 more years and 15 sacks per year. I'm not expecting TJ Watt numbers next year, but I feel like fourth quarter games, like a game last year when Minnesota had Josh Dobbs, came fresh off the plane to the stadium, was the emergency quarterback. Jaren Hall gets
Didn't even
hurt.
take a shower.
Just didn't know the offensive lineman's name and led a game-winning drive because Atlanta couldn't get to the passer. I don't even think it gets to that point if you could rush the passer. So I think he kind of masked those moments. They went defensive line in the draft, so I figured, 9-8 could win the division. So I just feel the defensive moves the team made. I still got to see it play out. I still had to see the relationship between the staff and the two quarterbacks. If it's really Penix is waiting and Kurt has free reign to just ball out. But yeah, so that was my revision.
Okay. Well, I guess my division winners are all the same, minus the NFC East. I took Philadelphia. So there you go. All right. So now let's get to the playoffs. So who was your number one seed?
I got Detroit number one in the NFC North. I think Dan Campbell is going to be out to prove a point. So I think he's going to go after those wins, 12, 13 wins. I think he's really going to drive home the point that I know I messed up on our trip to the Super Bowl last year and then Miami and the AFC because we went over their schedule. So many of their games that are against cold weather teams, they don't play during the cold weather months. And I think that's been their Achilles heel over the last few years. We talked about Tua's record when it's under 50 degrees. It's something like 1-7 or 1-9, somewhere in that range. So playing most of their games with the advantage, also locking up Tua financially, I think that puts some ease on him. I don't believe anybody's on the hot seat. They restructured Tyreek Hill's deal, so he's getting paid more. That way he's not focused on all these other deals that just went out. So I just think they're just kind of building in house. And, granted, I know they haven't won a playoff game in 24 years, but I'll give them the regular season AFC East championship.
Okay. All right. So my one seeds are Detroit and Kansas City. Kansas City. What are we doing here? Kansas City's the world champions of what? They're the world champions. No. So for real though. So I went with Detroit just because I wanted to pick San Francisco, but San Francisco has had a lot of injuries during the preseason. So I have to think that that's going to suffer a little bit early in the season as we get now. Kansas City's also in the same boat because what's going on with Rashee Rice and, Hollywood Brown has the shoulder injury and we don't know how long he's going to be out. All right. So then as I thought about it, I was looking at some things and the Rams are getting a lot of hype. People are saying that they're going to surmount San Francisco. All I know is Stafford's another year older and beat up. Cooper Kupp halfway beat up. Aaron Donald gone.
He's coming back.
He might, but until he does, he gone. and I'm not saying that means that the Rams are just going to fall off a cliff and go 4-13 like we said last year. But but it's just hard for me to see them surmounting San Francisco in that scenario. Now, when I look at, say, like Green Bay, for example, that's a tough team for me to reconcile. I can see because everybody, they talk about CJ Stroud and they say, what if he has the sophomore slump? Now I know Jordan Love isn't a sophomore in a sense because he's been around.
Yeah.
But last year was his first year starting. So who's to say that Jordan Love can't have a slump? So now you got the Bears out there, maybe. No.
I mean, the thing with the Bears is that they have a defensive coach that pretty much had the same team last year with Justin Fields. And I know Caleb Williams and Justin Fields aren't the same.
Yeah.
But he had the dynamic trio. I know Chase Claypool kind of panned out not to be as good. But if you can work him very similar to the way you work a tight end, instead of trying to give him these DJ Moore routes, give him that you could have given the Cole Kmet route. So I think like just the fact that the defensive head coach didn't really make the adjustments. I can see Chicago going 9-8 and missing the playoffs, but having a good year, a good 9-8.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll start with the NFC since we're already there.
Word.
So let's walk through this bracket.
All right. So the first round, I got San Francisco versus the Rams.
Ooh, right off top.
Yeah, because that's the 2-7 matchup.
Right off top.
Then I got Philly, Dallas, a couple of division foes. Green Bay, Atlanta. At Atlanta, I mean,
trying to struggle not to be a homer. The struggle is real.
the struggle is real because I want to be honest. I think they're going to have similar records. I think Atlanta, with the new defensive pieces they added, 9-8, 10-7 at best. Like I said, I had them 7-10 because I thought they would lose games 28-24 just because they couldn't get a stop. Now I think a couple of those games shift because you got two safeties back there. You can move Grant down in the box when you want to go dime and just kind of give different matchup problems to teams like to run with tight ends. You got a former strong safety that was a starter. You can put him down there. You can cover the tight end. I think you can win a couple more games. I'm gonna say home game. They get it.
Okay.
I think they win that home game. Philly did a lot with their personnel grouping. I just don't know if these reports about the coach-quarterback relationship, that the talent can trump that piece.
Do you think Jahan Dotson makes a difference?
I don't know why everyone kind of just looked at this like it's like the greatest move ever. I'm like, if he wasn't really panning out that well in Washington, and there's not more targets he's going to get in Philly, Saquon's got to get the ball 20 to 22 times. Jalen Hurts is going to run 6 or 7 times and throw maybe 35 times. Mm-hmm. He's got to get 11 to 12 targets to A.J. Brown, 8 to 10 to Devontae Smith, another 8 to 10 to Dallas Goedert. Is 8 to Dallas Goedert. There's how many targets is Jahan Dotson going to get to where he's impactful? So I think sometimes you can have too much.
Well, the good news is that in Washington they wanted him to be the number 2, and obviously he falls back to where he probably should be, in that slot receiver. And maybe his even if the numbers aren't there per se, maybe just the presence of him being in the slot.
Yeah, you got to put a competent cover guy on him. You can't just put a linebacker over there and say, "Hey, shut him down for 2-3 seconds while we get to the quarterback."
Yeah, and don't forget Bland is out for the next 6 to 8 weeks, by the way.
Yeah, so
and Diggs is coming back off of a ACL or an Achilles.
I want to believe in Dallas. I think Dallas has the talent to win the regular season. Like I said, NFC East Championship. I think they're going to play well at home throughout the year. But it's just, I think the pressure cooker that is Dallas and that star, I'm going to take Philly that round. And I'm going to take San Francisco. I just feel like just a wave of talent that just is going to just overwhelm the Rams eventually. I know the Rams are going to get a lot of guys open in space, and Stafford, if he can make it through the season healthy, no elbow or shoulder or hand injuries, because you see always he hit his hand on the helmet, hit his elbow on the helmet. There's always something that messes with his throwing motion to where he can't even play through it. If he hurt his leg and they could put a brace on it, and he can still go out there and just do his thing, but there's always something shoulder, hand, elbow that he can't play. Like he just can't be out there.
Shoulders, knees, and toes.
And toes. I was just said today with my grandson. It didn't work. He did not. He does not like that song. Yeah. So if we do the reseed, so that's Detroit, Atlanta playing against that would be Philly playing Detroit, and Atlanta at San Francisco.
Don't you dare!
I'll be honest. That's we're gonna have. I think we got an NFC Championship rematch. San Francisco, Detroit. Detroit wins it this time.
Okay.
Detroit goes to
the Super Bowl. Okay.
Detroit to the Super Bowl.
All right.
What you got?
In my NFC, like I said, I got Detroit as the first round bye. So talking about Dak owns Philly, how about San Francisco owns y'all? So San Francisco knocks Dallas out in the first round. I got Green Bay going into the compressor, walking out showing no love as they move on to the next round. Then it gets a little crazy over here. I admit it's getting a little crazy over here. I got Philly over the Rams
in the second round.
No. That's still first round.
Because you got Philly winning NFC East.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got Philly over the Rams. So then, as I go to the second round, I got Philly beating Detroit. And I got San Francisco over Green Bay. And then I got San Francisco putting the mollywop on the Eagles. So I got San Francisco going back to the Super Bowl.
It just doesn't happen that often.
I know.
And that's
where those injuries might catch up. It could be. You're right. It could happen that way.
So you got San Francisco back in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Who's going to be their opponent?
We'll get to that. Don't rush me. All right. So in the AFC, I mentioned Kansas City gets my first round bye. So everything must go through Arrowhead. All right. Mr. Logical about to have my ass in a minute. Pause. You know what I'm saying? All right. So I got Miami as the 2 seed.
Okay.
You ready for this, Mike? I got Miami knocking off Tennessee, ending the drought. Will Levis is going to have a remarkable season. They went out and got Calvin Ridley to go across from DeAndre Hopkins. They brought in Tyler Boyd to master the slot. I love Tajay Spears. I'm not the biggest Tony Pollard fan, but he serves a purpose. They went out and got L'Jarius Sneed and Jamal Adams. I'm here for the Titans. All right. Then, as I put my head down, I got Baltimore over Buffalo. If this was last year, I would have picked Buffalo, but Buffalo lost something. They lost a lot. So I'm going Baltimore over Buffalo. I got Houston over Cleveland. Repeat from last year. So if you're paying attention out there, yes, that means I do not have the Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs. That means I don't have the Jacksonville Jaguars in the playoffs. And if Lethal is listening out there, I don't have the damn Colts in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? So then, second round, I got Baltimore over Miami. And this is where we go to war. I'm taking Houston to end Kansas City's reign of terror. I'm taking C.J. Stroud to go into Arrowhead and walk out with a scalp.
In the second round, huh?
In the second round.
A round he's never lost in.
Fine. There's a first time for everything.
True. I like it.
You know, so there was a time where Kansas City never played a road playoff game.
Yeah. I mean, things are shifting. I give you that.
And then I got Baltimore in the Super Bowl. 49ers finally get it done.
All right. So mine reads a little different. So I got Miami as my number 1 seed. So my 2-7 matchup is Kansas City, Cincinnati. I think Kansas City handles business. That Burrowhead talk is going to come up.
Bring it up too.
It's going to come up that week. The mayor's going to say something.
I don't
Nick
care
Wright's
what you
going to
say.
lose his
Burrowhead
mind.
is a fire ass pun.
It would work if it would work if Joe Burrow had the kind of wins that Mahomes has over Josh Allen, like those level of wins. I think they got the one playoff win and a couple of regular season wins, and I think each one of those Kansas City was up, and then Cincinnati came back. So it wasn't like they just dominated them. But like I said, it was one, AFC Championship game, which is huge. That's a huge moment. But like the way
they would have got that second one if they didn't call that push out of bounds.
I mean, the dude was 2 yards out of bounds. You can't hit him in the back.
He definitely was.
But I think they even if they didn't call that, I believe they had enough time to still make another play that gets Harrison Buckner in the field goal range anyway.
Okay. All right. So what else you got?
So then I got my other matchup. I got Houston beating Buffalo. I think Josh Allen's going to have a Herculean, it's going to be like Zeus out there to carry these Bills to the promised land. And it's going to come up short in the first round of playoffs because I'm not sure if the weapons are going to be able to usurp what Houston's going to be able to do to them. So what you're
saying is you had Josh Allen as the MVP last year. He didn't get it, so he's going to get it this year. That's what you're saying?
Josh Allen MVP candidacy is going to be the best this year because he is going to be viewed as the only piece of an upper echelon offensive player on the team. Aside from him and Deion Dawkins on the edge as a tackle, as a left tackle, there won't be a consensus like, oh, these guys are elite.
So disrespectful.
Elite offensive players.
You gonna act like James Cook ain't finished 4th in the league in rushing last year?
But that doesn't make him elite. Najee Harris had 1,000 yards.
He ain't got to be elite, but he could be top 6 or 7 in the league in rushing again.
Yeah, but that having a top running back that isn't Christian McCaffrey or someone that's, I'm not saying like they won't be good players. I'm talking about the narrative surrounding Josh Allen will be he is the offense.
Oh, he about to get that LeBron stimulus.
He's about to get the Lamar stimulus. The double MVPs, the 2 MVPs Lamar had was because the narrative was he didn't have the wide receiver talent that other quarterbacks had.
All right, who else?
Including Josh Allen last year. Yeah, so but they're gonna lose to Houston.
All right.
And then I got the Brother Bowl, the Harbaugh brothers battling it out, Baltimore and the Chargers.
Okay.
I got John winning that one.
Kool-Aid. Speaking of Harbaugh, real quick, did you realize that Michigan got their notice of allegations today, and the Connor Stallions documentary comes out in 2 days? Talk about timing. But anyway, Brother Bowl.
It's chaos. I got the Brother Bowl in the first round of playoffs. It's going to be great. I'm going to talk about it all week. But I got Baltimore winning that.
Okay.
So my divisional round matchups, I'm going to go Miami and Baltimore, Kansas City and Houston. I got Kansas City beating Houston. I don't believe they walk in the Arrowhead and win.
Final four there.
And I got Baltimore beating Miami, rematch, AFC Championship game in Arrowhead, Kansas City over Baltimore. They played Detroit, and the Super Bowl.
And a three-peat?
I'm gonna go on a ledge and say yes. I just don't see.
Okay. Last year was the year to get him, right?
It's so but to just say this. Like I get it. It's like it's not. I want to have like conviction,
right?
But I just don't see, like, all things being equal. Granted, yeah, injuries happen. You know, coaches get fired, or just players get traded. Some teams can make a move. You got Devontae Adams out there. He probably won't be happy in Las Vegas. He goes to the Jets. That changes the whole AFC dynamic.
Hold up, let's back up
little
for a
things like
second.
that.
Let's back up for a second. Hold on. You didn't have the mighty Jacksonville Jaguars in the playoffs?
I did have Jacksonville in the playoffs. I do like what they did at wide receiver. I like the LSU wide receiver they drafted, Thomas. I think he's going to be better than Malik Neighbors. I just like his attitude better. I think he's just a little bit more of a lunch spell, just go to work kind of guy. I think the Giants will be one of those teams that lose pieces because it's going to be the New York teams are going to be more drama off the field than performance on the field. I just have that feeling. I think Malik Neighbors is going to. I think he's going to have these outbursts like Odell had.
Yeah.
And I understand passion. But you also have to understand like professionalism, understand where you are. But like I said, during his pro day, he ran whatever time he ran during his pro day and was like flexing and just like, you still know about me? I'm like, dog, it's a pro day. Go out here and play for real and get your wins and losses. I don't know. I just feel like some teams are going to be, like I said, I think some teams are going to be sellers at the trade deadline, and that can change the entire dynamic. If you think about Kansas City, I don't believe they're paying any of their top players other than maybe Chris Jones that might be getting paid at that upper echelon of the money.
You know what makes me kind of afraid? And I know that Patrick Mahomes is great, obviously, for the fact that they felt the need to go sign Juju makes me believe that Hollywood Brown's going to miss a lot of time.
Or Rashee Rice is.
Or Rashee Rice. And of course we got it just escaped me. Go ahead. I just lost my thought.
Yeah. So like I said, I feel like you guys got to mark it, go back, check it. I said Matthew Judon will probably be traded by the trade deadline. I think he'll get traded before the end of the preseason. But you can just tell certain guys are just unhappy with certain veterans are understanding I'm going to make a lot of money, but I got a short amount of time to really be successful. I've gotten my guarantee, my signing bonuses for these big deals, and the team around me that paid me this big deal fell apart. Like if Miami didn't re-sign Tua and walked, and then Tyreek is out here trying to figure out who the next quarterback is going to be, I figure he'd be just as angry as Devontae Adams is. I think Devontae Adams getting traded to the Jets is more likely than anything else. And I think if that happens, that changes my AFC picture. I don't know. I don't know if this matters. I believe Garrett Wilson was 17 last season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this year he changed to 5?
I believe so.
Devontae Adams wears 17. I wonder if anybody else picked up that number. Or is it vacant? With this understanding that Aaron's going to go get.
What's going to be vacant?
Let me see. I'm going to pull it
up. Robert Saleh's seat next year. That's what's going to be vacant.
Not if they make one of these moves.
They ain't. I mean, even if they do, it don't matter. I don't think that them adding Devontae fixes anything in their locker room. It doesn't fix Aaron's attitude. It doesn't fix the fact that Aaron Rodgers is not the quarterback that he was 2 to 3 years ago. Doesn't change the fact that he ain't old man. So I mean, I'm just not in on the Jets. Like
and that's the thing.
Situation.
I'm not in on them either, but Malachi Corley, wide receiver. I'm pretty sure they can get that number off him if they trade
I
for.
believe he's a rookie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they'll put him on a practice squad, get his number.
So hold on.
Like I said,
let's back up.
the thing about the Jets, and this is the thing about the Jets, and like I said, I don't want to bring feelings to a fact fight. My issue with the Jets is that I don't like how they're just operating at the podium and off of the field.
Right. And I agree with that. Yeah.
And the game is played on the field. I believe they have the talent to win. I just was thinking, I can't really think 3 AFC East teams to get in the same way I wouldn't put 3 AFC North teams in.
Well, that's what I wanted to back you up for a second, because what happened?
They battle each other.
What happened to the Steelers? Have a coach that is as even kill as me. Don't bet against Virginia. What happened to all that?
I'm not betting. I'm staying true to my logic. I don't see them making it through the season without a quarterback controversy with 2 guys who could potentially underachieve. I thought Russ was a good quarterback last year in Denver, and I kind of put it all on Sean Payton. I'm not sure if Pittsburgh adding Justin Fields helped Russ.
Do you?
And I don't. But that's it. I think he's a field because one of I forgot.
Other than as a quarterback, that's what I was going to ask you.
I think they'll put him out there in gadget plays. I think they'll put him out there for double passes. But ultimately, Pittsburgh has a very easy early schedule. So whoever's the starter, not necessarily easy, relative to the latter half of their schedule. Their first 8 games versus their first 9 games versus their following 8 games. By comparison, one's easier than the other. Like they're 2 separate slices of pie. If Russ can perform and TJ Watt stays healthy and they play like his record is something like 39-17 when he plays and like 1-11 when he doesn't, it's just if they can keep all those players there, I think they'll be fine. I just think that last stretch is just going to be too tough. They can play the best football they can, but to play it for that schedule for those 8 games, that's just going to be tough. You're bound to in the NFL. You're bound to lose games anyway. 10, like I said, 10-7 gets you into the playoffs as a wild card. So you got to go 10-7.
Right.
If you don't win your division, and you're not going to win the AFC North at 10-7 or 9-8. So I just don't see Pittsburgh going 10-7 just because of the stretch.
Okay, fair enough. Because like I said, the Steelers are going below 500 for the first time in Mike Tomlin's career.
That would be tough to get fired after that. And I get that you throw in the playoff losses and lack of success, but it's a lot of coaches that just got hired.
2017.
Yes, it's a tough road. It's a tough road. I think if they had different ownership,
or actually 2016, my bad.
If they had different ownership, I think they'd be fired. He'd be fired.
Yeah.
But the fact that they have, that old money, like they're the Rooneys, that old money, just like keep the investment, keep everything locked in. We don't gamble. What's stable? Stable is good, smart head coach. We get wins. We have one down year. But I didn't like the player. I didn't like the moves getting Justin Fields and Russ at the same time. 2 guys on prove-it deals who both can't prove it simultaneously is a bad combination.
All right, last thing before we get out of here. In our tradition, let's spitball real quick. What coaches are not head coaches next season?
Oh, yeah, this is our thing. We do this every year. You want to go division by division? Go AFC East.
Yeah, we'll start with AFC East. I think everybody returns besides Salah. I think that it is possible, depending on how Buffalo's season ends,
for McDermott to go.
I think McDermott could go. Not that I think he deserves to, but I just think that you hit a wall at some point of We've been doing this for 7 years. We've been doing this for 8 years.
All right. South.
South.
Dougie P safe.
No, he's not.
You
If
gave that
Jacksonville,
quarterback that money.
yeah, if they don't make the playoffs, he's gone. And I don't have him making the playoffs, so therefore, I think he's gone.
Dougie P. Everybody else is safe.
Everybody else safe.
All right. North. Tomlin.
Possibly. The Steelers just don't fire coaches, though. You know what I mean?
They don't fire coaches, but maybe.
But it's possible because, like I said, they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. You know what I mean? Like without that, if it was more recent with a playoff win, then I'd say okay. But you're pushing up on a decade with no playoff win.
The West, I think everyone's safe. I don't think Peyton gets fired.
Yeah, everybody's safe in the West. Yeah,
I think his deal is like I don't know if I ever looked it up or just rumor it was like $20 million a year.
Yeah, it's too ironclad. Yeah. I think we're good. Then in the NFC
East,
I don't know about McCarthy.
Yeah.
Just because, not because I think he deserves to be fired, not because he did anything wrong. The Cowboys just seem to be in a state of flux right now.
I think McCarthy resigns, win or lose.
See that?
I think he doesn't come back.
I could see that,
just
especially depending on what happens with the quarterback.
All right, Sirianni. Do you take the quarterback or you take the coach?
If Philly doesn't make the playoffs, or let's say they get in at 9-8 and they lose in the first round, he's gone. Because this is the second straight year that you're coming in with new coordinators.
You think he goes if McCarthy leaves in Dallas? Do you think Philly says, "Okay, cool, we got an advantage at coach down the division, we keep him"? You think they wait?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. Because I think Philly views themselves as a Super Bowl team. I mean, they just made it 2 years ago. They started out 10-1 last year.
Had the
you know what I mean? Just fell apart.
We already know Dennis Allen in the South.
Yeah, Dennis Allen's gone. Everybody else should be good.
Eberflus. They go 9-8, 8-9. Offense doesn't pop.
I think
you get rid of him and bring in an offensive coach.
I think no, because I think that would have been the job you would have fired him this year, knowing that you were getting Caleb Williams. You would have fired him this year.
But the difference is, I looked at Justin Fields, and I could tell he was holding on to the ball too long. I can tell he was causing you some of these problems. I think Caleb Williams is going to get that ball out. I think Caleb Williams is going to get it to these weapons, or he's going to want to, and there's going to be situations where it's 4th and 3 and you should go for it. He's going to be like, we're going to punt it and rely on our defense, and the defense is going to come down and give up the score. I think it's going to be some of those games where, like, because Colin Cowherd talks about this a lot, and I don't know how much he's really researched. It's kind of like just as an observational piece. Defensive head coaches tend to err on the side of caution. So, like I said, 4th and 2 from the 44, you go for it, you end the game. He's going to punt it, rely on his defense, bad pass interference call, and now Minnesota's at the 35.
I say,
and I think he does that 2 or 3 times throughout, and they lose a game because of it. I say
9-8. I say 9-8. He stays just because it's a 2-game improvement. With a rookie quarterback and first year of a new system.
The offense have to be better.
I mean, yeah, it does. I mean, you brought in Shane Waldron, who worked on the reclamation project known as Geno Smith. So, yeah, you're saying.
So I need 3,800 yards, or what was the rookie record?
I would say
4,200 yards from Caleb.
I would say
4,027 touchdowns.
I would say 3,500 yards, 24 touchdowns, and less than 13 interceptions.
If you're going less than 13 interceptions, I think you need 28 touchdowns.
Okay, fair enough.
I think but like the offense has to pop. It has to look like Kansas City light, not 50 touchdown Mahomes, but it has to have that quick strike consistently week to week. And I don't know how he's going to play in the cold. I mean, he played in Oklahoma. It gets pretty cold in the Panhandle. So I don't know how he's going to handle the cold. But if that's that Lake Michigan and Lake Superior and all that cold wind starts whipping around from the Great Lakes, is he going to be able to run around and scramble on ice when Soldier Field gets cold? So out west,
could Shanahan get fired?
Nah. Lynch is a loyal guy. He's brandy. He was in that secret meeting at the in the woods with the owl carved into the tree. So they're good.
So I don't think anybody in that division gets fired because this is McDonald's first year. This is Gannon's second year.
You better give a better speech. I'm firing him. If I get another speech like that, you're getting fired.
But I wonder if Matt Stafford retires or gets hurt again.
Oh, does McVay leave? Stand next to Tom Brady.
Right. Because I mean, he's threatened it after, Super Bowls and stuff. So, is he there next year just based off of, or if it doesn't work this year, they don't make the playoffs, especially with all the hype they're getting. Does he just walk away?
Does he take a year off to have a baby? And so, I'm going to take this time off. I think they just got married. I know around the time that they traded Goff, I believe she was his fiance. So maybe, but like I said, the money for him, because I think we talk about Tom Brady's Booth contract.
$38 million. Yeah.
$38 million a year.
Yeah.
Everyone when they interview Sean McVay, they talk to him about his memory and the way he breaks down plays. Naturally, he's charismatic, looks the part. I can see him in the booth. Maybe not next to Tom Brady because it's like a 7-inch height difference, so it would look kind of odd. But I could see him, Mike Tirico or somebody like that. I could see him doing one of these, on somebody's show or up there with Tony Dungy breaking down on, Football Night in America. I could see somebody reaching out to him as soon as he says, soon as the season looks like it's going to wrap up for the Rams and gauge, hey, are you ready to go? Because I can't imagine Stafford throwing that ball around for too many years. You already got your Super Bowl. If you go back to the Super Bowl, I mean, do you have the arm that's going to win you Super Bowl MVP if you get back? Or are you dinking and dunking to Puka and and Cooper Kupp and those guys are just carrying a rock 45 yards after catch? And it's the same thing with Cooper Kupp winning the MVP when they won it.
Right. Yep. So there you go. That's our coaching thoughts, and we'll be back on Thursday.
So we got 8 new jobs
because we got some big games to preview for this weekend. And we'll be back. Hopefully, you enjoy the rest of your week. See you then. We love you.
Thanks to all the new subscribers. Shout out to the 32nd ARS. I was hounding everybody at work last week. Thank y'all for subscribing. Hope y'all watch the show. If not, we're watching at work tomorrow anyway.
Yep. So I'm going to remind y'all one more time. We are everywhere you get your podcast. Like, review, subscribe, rate, share. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. Peace.